Now we are with the youth of Rick Gladiatal, who as a child enjoyed the story of Yamato. In that story, it was said that by defeating the most powerful monster, Kaiser Alsapiet, one could obtain a treasure that grants any wish, the Akashic Records. But Yamato could not defeat that monster, and one of the children who now dreams of becoming an adventurer may find that treasure and make their wishes come true. Inspired by this story, Rick tells his parents that he wants to be an adventurer, but his mother tells him that it is a dangerous job and he could die at any moment, so she prefers he dedicates himself to something else. Meanwhile, his father asks him to stop believing in those fairy tales from the legends of Yamato, suggesting he should look for a stable job. When Rick goes to school, one of the teachers congratulates him as, after examining him, they discovered he has a marker of an innate ability. The teacher also mentions that it is quite rare to find people with markers, although they do not know what his ability is, but it is not something that manifests through training, so he must give it time. Rick is super happy about this news, as it is something Yamato has as well. He wants to proudly tell his parents on the day that ability manifests, not giving up on becoming an adventurer. From then on, Rick's days go by, but his innate ability still does not manifest, with failed attempts at creating some magic as well. Those days turn into weeks, then months, and thus years. Eventually, Rick informs his parents that he found a job as a receptionist at a guild called Tiger Road, which makes them very happy. After that, time continues to pass, and Rick's spirits are not so high as he watches adventurers pass by. Alisa joins the work later, and Rick reaches a point where he has to put away the Legends of Yamato book. When he turns 30, he continues to help Alisa with what she is not very good at, having plenty of experience himself. He takes the opportunity to tell her that monsters have been appearing in town lately, so they will surely post a mission. Most are low-level, so it will likely be a Class D mission. After she leaves, a few seconds later, an adventurer Rick knows named Zaid arrives. Zaid begins to laugh annoyingly, boasting to Rick about his level B emblem, announcing that he has finally ascended. Hearing this affects Rick a little inside, giving his congratulations with some difficulty. But as he leaves work, Rick reveals how discouraged he is, as nothing has changed for him, having spent 14 years sitting in the same place, doing the same job. Trying to stay positive, he sees the fact that at least he has a good salary, frustrating himself with the thought of how things would go if he were already an adventurer. Suddenly he hears people screaming that there are monsters around. Running toward the noise, he sees it as a giant troll, something that takes him by surprise, having no idea what a mid-level monster is doing here. At that moment, he sees a girl passing by carelessly, so he immediately goes to her to stand in front and protect her. But the girl steps forward to ask him to step back, and right after that, she cuts the monster into pieces with rapid hand movements. She then thanks him for trying to save her, but says there is nothing to worry about as she is an adventurer. The two start walking down the streets, and Rick thanks her for saving him and asks for her name. She introduces herself as Rionette Elfelt, and he as Rick Gladiatal, marking the moment they met. Rick recognizes how strong she is, but learns that she is not level B or A, but S rank, admiring the emblem of that level. This leaves him quite stunned, remembering that S levels are managed directly by the headquarters, being the elite of adventurers. Taking advantage of meeting a legendary adventurer, he asks if he can ask her something, asking her not to laugh about it. Rionette allows it, clarifying that she hasn't laughed since she was 8 years old, and that was 9 years ago. Rick then tells her that he has dreamed of becoming an adventurer and defeating Kaiser Alsapiet since he was a child, and he has an innate ability that has yet to manifest. So if he tries to become an adventurer now, at 30, he wants to know if he can do it. Rionette replies that in the previous incident, he showed courage, something important for an adventurer. But working in a guild, he should know about magic reserves, which are basically impossible to develop when you are older. And since every adventurer needs a certain minimum of magic reserves, being honest, she can only give him one answer, and that is, if he tried to become an adventurer now, it would be completely impossible. Receiving these harsh words, Rick tries to stay positive, accepting that a top adventurer put his feet on the ground, so he can forget about the dream he has clung to for years. He also asks her not to worry, thanking her for her kindness, adding that today was a great day because he got to meet her. He even invites her to eat, though he then clarifies that he was joking. To his surprise, Rionette says she accepts his invitation, informing him that she is free tomorrow, something he really did not expect. The next day, Rick is super happy at work, something that catches Elisa's attention, but his excess energy scares her a bit. When he leaves work, he is so excited walking through the streets, all because he will have dinner with a nice girl, believing that if things go well today, they might become a couple. Unfortunately for him, the next thing that happens is that people run in the opposite direction because a monster is attacking, and this happens right now. While searching for the attack site, he thinks it's not normal for so many to appear lately. There he finds Rionette, noticing that there's nothing to worry about as she has exterminated a large number of monsters on her own. Despite this, many more of them emerge from the forest heading in their direction, and she asks him to leave this to her. Rick agrees without complaint, as he would only get in the way, so he steps back to give her space. The first thing she does is announce herself as the guillotine maid Rionette Elfelt, who begins the battle. Right after that, she pulls out some needles she keeps in her hands, performing long-range slashes that easily slice the enemies to pieces. Here, Rick remains stunned, seeing how an S-level fights, finding it more than impressive. Once she finishes eliminating a certain number of monsters, she stands looking at the horizon for several seconds. Suddenly, she starts to recall something from her past, something terrible that affects her deeply. When Rick approaches, Rionette tells him she feels a familiar magical energy, although she doesn't say what it is. This is because another monster appears and attacks them, but luckily Zaid arrives just in time to protect them, accompanied by more adventurers. Zaid explains to Rick that the guild posted an urgent mission, and they will take care of it from now on. The three begin to work together to clear the area, displaying great destructive power. Seeing this, Rick feels envious, as this is what real adventurers are like. And then he tells Rionette not to worry as Zaid is level B, but she says that's not enough, and it's very dangerous because there's a dragon nearby. She also tells him that her body has a trauma, as her magic goes out of control when she senses a dragon's magic. Right after that, the dragon flies above them, and everyone is in shock as it's a high-level monster, while Rick assumes the monsters were coming because they were fleeing from it. The dragon lands on the ground, creating a strong gust of wind due to its weight and imposing force. Zaid mentions that according to basic rules, if someone below level A encounters a dragon, the best thing to do is flee. One of the adventurers attacks the monster out of panic, but it has no effect, provoking the dragon to launch a simple attack that forces them to retreat. With no other option, everyone starts to flee, but they are stopped by a barrier erected by the dragon, trapping them. In this desperate situation, Rick approaches the monster directly. Zaid asks what he's doing, as he's just a receptionist, to which Rick responds that at this rate, they'll all die. But if he faces it, at least he can die as an adventurer, aware that they can do nothing against this dragon. And if it grazes him with its claws, he's a dead man. He thought giving up his dream would be a relief, but his blood boils, realizing he always wanted to live like this. Not letting fear control him, he picks up a rock and throws it at the dragon. Seeing this, Zaid regains his composure and encourages the other adventurers to fight, not wanting a receptionist to steal the spotlight. The three launch attacks against it, but nothing causes any damage, and they see the dragon starting to prepare its breath attack. Zaid reacts quickly by using steel body magic on all of them, taking the powerful attack from the dragon. Thanks to this defensive magic, they survive, though all are completely weakened, with Rionette still unable to face the dragon due to her trauma. Rick emerges from the rubble, approaching the dragon and declaring that he will fulfill his dream. Right after that, the monster crushes him with one of its paws, but suddenly, the system grants Rick his ability. The next thing that happens is he manages to lift the dragon's paw off him, beginning to radiate an aura of great power. Rionette is surprised to see this, as so much magic flows from him that it's visible to the naked eye. Rick mentions that he heard a voice, and that this is his innate ability. Now more confidently, he warns the lizard before him about what's coming, as it will help him test his ability. He then blocks 2 types of dragon breath with this new power, called Awakening of Wild Valor. Charging one of his attacks, he fires it directly at the dragon, an energy beam that completely pierces it along with the barrier, reaching the sky. After defeating the dragon, he returns to normal, and seconds later, collapses unconscious. Now we see Rick waking up, and the first thing he experiences is great pain. Rionette, who is beside him, asks him not to move, as all his magic circuits have burst, and he was on the brink, having slept for a week. Rick also learns from her that she stayed by his side all this time, so he asks why she did it, to which she responds that it was to invite him to join her group, Orichalcum Fist, as their goal is the same as his, to defeat Kaiser Alsapiet. Confirming that Kaiser really exists, and seeing him fight with courage and not give up, she knows he can become strong and fight in their group. Then she guarantees that he will become an adventurer. Rick is more than surprised to hear these words, mentioning it's the first time anyone has told him that. There he asks if it's okay to try, and if he really can be an adventurer, even at this stage. And Rionette without hesitation says yes, letting Rick shed those tears of happiness. Returning to the present, Rick finally hears number 4242 called, meaning he passed the exam. Shortly after, Rionette congratulates him, as he is now a certified adventurer. Here he mentions that this is thanks to them, and also thanks to his past self who never gave up, declaring that he is now an adventurer, one of his dreams that has finally come true. And that's it. If you liked it, subscribe to support the channel. Comment the word awakening to show that you stayed until the end, as not many people usually do.